We love elections here on Sky News. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has retained power in the closely fought federal elections in Canada, but a narrow win means he will be forced to lead a minority government. The Liberals, that's the centre-left party of Justin Trudeau in Canada, they were neck and neck with their centre-right Conservative rivals. With a reduced seat count, Trudeau will now need to rely on other parties to pass legislation. His victory comes despite a drop in popularity over the last 4 years since his big win, and the emergence, of course, in recent times of photos of him wearing blackface. But the Canadian Prime Minister says voters have tonight chosen a progressive agenda.
Canadians rejected division and negativity. They rejected cuts and austerity, and they voted in favour of a progressive agenda and strong action on climate change. I have heard you, my friends. You are sending our Liberal team back to work.
Well, let's go live for more on this to Tess Van Straten, a reporter from Check News in Victoria, Canada. Thank you very much for your time over there. Now, the polls indicate tight. They have proven to be correct, I suppose. What do you know so far about where and amongst which groups the swings have happened against Trudeau?
Well, there were actually 10% of voters undecided heading into Election Day today. So that's a huge number of voters who weren't sure what decision they were going to make until they walked into that polling station today. And that could swing it either way for the Liberals or the Conservatives. And it was really about getting the vote out, the ground game, and getting supporters out to vote today. But I think the big surprise is just how many seats the Liberals did take. A lot of people thought it would be a Liberal minority government, but the projections were around 130 or 140 seats. They ended up with 156, and the Conservatives had 122. So it was actually a much bigger gap than most people thought there would be in this case. And the popular vote, though, that's where things got really interesting. The polls had the Conservatives and Liberals neck and neck, too close to call federally as well as in ridings across the country. But the Conservative Party actually had 34.5% of the popular vote. The Liberals, who won the most seats, had 33% of the vote. So even though the Conservatives got more votes, they still lost quite a few seats compared to the Liberals. So it's about a 26-seat gap, which is really interesting, like the U.S. election a few years ago where Hillary Clinton had more of the popular vote, but they didn't win the most seats and wouldn't form government. So it was a surprising night. We weren't expecting the Liberals to win that many seats, especially considering all of the issues that came up with Prime Minister Trudeau during the campaign. The joke now is he's Teflon Trudeau because nothing stuck to him. There was the blackface scandal. There was another bribery scandal. There were lots of things that came up and nothing seemed to stick. So despite all of those things, any other politician probably would have gone down, would not have been able to form government again, but that's not the case now. So the question now, though, is it's not a majority government. 170 seats is needed for that. So what happens? What party will help prop up this Liberal minority government? The NDP have already said that they would probably do that on confidence motions. So the discussions now will be who will help the Liberals stay in power for the next 4 years, or will we have an election sooner than that?
And just on that, if he can manage to form government there with those minor players, what's that going to mean on the policy front? Does the carbon price stay in place? Will he have to make concessions in some areas?
He probably will have to make concessions. For the carbon price, he probably won't. The NDP is supportive of the carbon tax, so they would be behind that. But pipelines have been a major issue here. So the NDP has come out against pipelines. There's one the Liberal government actually bought. It was a very controversial decision to buy the Trans Mountain pipeline. Justin Trudeau had run on, being strong for the environment and fighting climate change. So a lot of people lost a lot of confidence in him, and he lost a lot of support because how can you say you're for the environment and fighting climate change and then turn around the next day and buy a pipeline? So that's something the NDP probably won't support, the expansion of that pipeline. So that situation could be tricky. The Liberals have already bought it, so it'll be interesting to see what happens there. On budget decisions, he may have to give in to some of the NDP plans, some of the spending they wanted to do. They certainly wanted to do more spending than what the Liberals had planned. But those parties, as well as the Green Party, were really strong on climate change and fighting climate change. So I'm sure he'll have support on anything on that front from both the Greens and the NDP.
It'll be an interesting time ahead, no doubt about that. Tess Van Stratten joining us live there from Victoria, Canada. Appreciate your time and analysis. Thank you.